And here are the players in the London Chess Classic, the third leg of the Grand Chess Tour. Magnus Carlsen from Norway, current world champion, arguably one of the best players that ever lived. Fabiano Caruana from the United States, top grandmaster in the world. If you remember, Fabiano just ran through the competition in the Singfield Cup. My buddy from the United States as well, Carl Nakamura. Great player. Carl is just an amazing player. I'm a little biased because I like a Carl, but I'll tell you, he's going to be playing in the candidates final in March. We'll see. And Veselin Topalov from Bulgaria, former world champion. It's funny, they wrote off the old guys like Kramnik and Topalov, and here they are back on top again. I believe Topalov is now number 2 in the world. Alexander Grischuk from Russia, very underrated player. Alex is always in the top in the world. If you just can control his time trouble addiction, I think Alex can go a long ways. And of course, former world champion from India, Viswanathan, I believe 6-time world champion. He was counted out when he lost to Magnus Carlsen, and then he won the candidates final to play Carlsen again. He did lose that rematch, but it's no slouch to win the candidates final after losing the world championship, but he did it. Great player. All right, folks, John Cordisco back again. Sorry I'm a little late getting this round out. This is round 9 of the 7th annual London Chess Classics, the 2015 edition. The third leg in a 3 series of tournaments called the Grand Chess Tour. The first was Norway Chess. The second was Singfield Cup here in the United States in St. Louis. And the third is here in London. Carlsen needs to win this game. If he wins this game, it'll be a 3-way tie for first in the London Chess Classic. So let's get to it. Carlsen is white. Alexander Grischuk is black. I like Alex a lot. But he's just a time trouble junkie. He could probably be top 5 in the world if he just stopped his time trouble. But let's get to it. It's going to be a Sicilian, Moscow. Go through the opening a little bit. We don't pretty much do opening theory here. That G5 move is interesting. That's kind of new. The computer, of course, has no emotions. If that's the best move, it's the best move. And it likes knight to E5. G5, knight takes. Oddly enough, that's the second choice of the computer. C takes B5 is the first choice, allowing that pawn to move down or be reinforced, which I find interesting. Of course, like I said, the computer has no emotion. It doesn't see the pawns coming, nor does it care. It's just cold calculation. Knight takes, knight D5, bishop B2, pawn takes, knight, rook B8. Okay. Kind of a screwy Sicilian, but rook to F1, back to rook to F1 from Carlsen. F4 was a computer suggestion, and I kind of agree. That's very aggressive, but I think absolutely necessary. But Magnus decided to go rook to F1. I'm not double guessing the world champion. I just thought he's kind of a go-getter guy, and he has to win this game, so I was a little surprised. H6, knight to F3. Knight to D3 by Grischuk. And knight to E1. He doesn't want to trade that bishop takes knight. Then pawn takes. And this pawn comes up. And that's just like a bone in your throat. Knight to E1. Knight takes B2. Bishop takes, rook takes. That's pretty much the best that Magnus could have got out of that. Small advantage here on the computer, but this pawn's on the queen side for black. We'll have to see how it works out, but how is he going to undouble him? That's the problem. He advances this pawn, and it takes. You have to retake, and here are the double isolated. Bishop takes, rook, queen E2. Okay. Little screwy game. Oddly enough, Black has not castled or developed his dark squared bishop, which I find a little weird by move 16. Finally gets the bishop. Knight c2. Rook b6. Rook a to b1 for Magnus. Trying to own the file. Black just castles. Rook takes, queen takes. Alright. Magnus wants the b file, he can have it. We'll see what he does. Knight to e3. e6, just to stop the knight from coming in here. Forcing a trade. f4, finally, here comes that fun. For white, king h8. That one I don't understand. And I like Grischuk a lot, I really do. And we're on move 21, and I have no doubt, I'm trying to remember, he had some time trouble. He always does. By a weird coincidence, it costs him in classical games, quote-unquote classical games, but he's one of the best blitz players in the world. Go figure. Makes sense to me. King h8. And Magnus continues with f5. Just trying to open up that king side. a5. Grischuk just ignores it. a4, just to close that up. Now that knight is really guarding the a4 pawn really well. Queen d8. h3. Queen e7. Now let's take a breath here and check this out. Both of the kings are somewhat secure. A lot of center pawns for black. Could be a problem later down the road. Push, take, with a proper setup. Get these pawns rolling down. We'll have to see. I think white's okay too. Queen's in a good spot. That bishop on c4 is bearing right down the position. I think it's pretty equal. Now, the computer shows it about a 2/3 of a pawn advantage for white. Bishop a6. He's looking to trade. Knight to h5. Okay, I like that. That's okay. Computer just likes the pawn on a5, or knight to e2 is the other choice. Maybe just to keep the knight out. It guards these two squares for the black knight. But he goes rook to f3. Just to guard the g3 square, I think. Give me an idea if he had taken the pawn. After rook, knight e2, bishop, pawn takes, queen takes. About the same advantage for white. It cleared out the pawns pretty good, though, in front of black's king. After rook to f3, rook comes over. Grischuk's looking to line up right on the white king. Knight to b5, and that's a good spot for that knight, but the problem is he's offsides in a little bit. He's not really part of the action. He's going after the pawn on d6 for black. Bishop e5. And now, right now, it shows 0.00. That bishop's in a hell of a spot. Knight to g4 to chase him off. And now he goes queen to h4. Still shows 0.00, but if you're white, you have to be careful. That queen's going to get to e1. That bishop bearing down. Give you an idea. Just check if the rook intervenes, picks up the pawn, and God knows what else can happen. You got the knight coming in, the bishop coming in, the rook is right here. But believe it or not, it's 0.00. F takes. F takes. Knight takes the bishop. Pawn takes. Queen takes e6. Okay. It's really messy. Both kings are now exposed. Black's a little bit more. But white's knight on b5 is nowhere in the action. So as far as I'm concerned right now, Grischuk is up a piece. And this is where I think he stumbles. It's a very human move. Queen to g5 was the computer's move, threatening mate. You have to go to g4, the knight f4. Goes queen to e1 check. Now, that's move 32. I have no doubt that Sasha was in huge time trouble. He always is. It's a very natural move. Queen to G5 was the best move, and after G4, knight to F4. And I think White's got, technically it's got a lead on the computer, but that's going to be hard to play. But after rook to E1, king goes to H2, rook takes, looks really scary. Queen takes, and that was the huge mistake. Move 34 for black. Queen to E2 check. Right now, it's a 3-point advantage for white. The game is over. To give you an idea, and it's a very natural move, and all of us would make that move in a second, and I'm sure he was low at time. Queen to E2 check. Then after king to G1, queen takes the rook. Queen takes H6, king G8. Check. King F7. Knight checks. King E6. It looks really scary. And white does have an advantage for sure, but at least he's got a chance to draw it now. But after queen takes D2, it's over. Knight to G1. Queen. We'll go through the last couple of moves. Rook. It's over. Rook F2. Queen E1. King to G2. And that's it. Grischuk resigns. Even if he had played knight checks. Rook takes, pawn takes, queen takes H6 check. The game is over. Anyway, folks, tough break for Sasha. So Magnus Carlsen tied for first place. A 3-way tie. And I don't have any of the tie-break games. But the way it worked out was Anish Giri, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and Magnus were in a 3-way tie. Magnus had the better tie breaks, whatever system they use, so he sat out the first tie break games. And he ended up playing in the final. I believe, I'm trying to recall, in the first tie break game, MVL, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave won. Played Magnus for the championship tie break and lost to Magnus. So Magnus Carlsen, my buddy Carl Nakamura's nemesis, arch enemy, so to speak, in chess, wins the London Chess Classic. And I'll tell you, Hikaru had a damn good chance of winning it. He just couldn't put it together. So anyway, folks, tournament's coming up in Qatar. But what I'm really, really looking for is this coming March. Next year in March is the candidates final. And we have 2 Americans in it. Fabiano Caruana and my personal favorite, Carl Nakamura. If one of those guys can get in the World Championship, I'm old enough to remember when Fischer won the championship in 1972. That's what got me started playing chess, and I've been playing ever since. And if we get another American in there, all hell could break loose again in the world, and I'm really looking forward to that. Anyway, folks, as I always say, if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.